Welcome to the Emotions of Life channel. Like the video, subscribe and enjoy the story. It was a rainy night, with strong winds hitting the windows of André's luxurious apartment, a successful millionaire whose companies and properties always maintained his impeccable image. He was about to marry Isabella, a simple woman with enchanting beauty and a pure heart. They were the perfect couple in everyone's eyes. However, as the big day approached, Isabella couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. With every meeting with friends, every toast to the engagement, she felt farther from him. André, with his perfect smile and impeccable appearance, seemed to be hiding something. But what? Something wasn't right, and she felt it deep in her soul. That night, after a romantic dinner while he took a shower, Isabella decided to explore the hidden corners of the house. She had searched before, but nothing seemed out of place. However, tonight something pushed her to go further. She entered André's office, a room filled with books, documents, and some photos. Her eyes moved from one item to another, until, at the back of a drawer, she found something that made her stop in her tracks. It was a yellowed letter with a signature she didn't recognize. The content of the letter was so full of emotion and mystery that Isabella couldn't look away. The words revealed a secret so deep that, upon reading them, her heart stopped for a second. André, the man she was going to marry, was involved in something much bigger than she could have ever imagined. He was hiding a secret that not only destroyed everything she believed about him, but also threatened both of their lives. Before she could reflect more on what she had read, she heard André's footsteps approaching. She quickly hid the letter and sat down, her heart racing. But there was something else. What she was about to discover next wasn't just about what André had been hiding. It was something that would change everything, something he would never imagine she would uncover. And from that moment on, nothing would ever be the same. Isabella couldn't forget what she had read in the letter. André's secret was like a shadow hanging over her, but she didn't know where to start understanding what was behind all of it. She tried to ignore it, pretending that everything was fine. But the feeling of discomfort was uncontrollable. Each day he became more distant, more closed off, and the sense that he was hiding something only grew. In the following days, she started to notice details she had previously ignored. Like that mysterious phone call that André always took in another room, the hurried look he exchanged with his employees whenever he returned from a trip, the way he tried to change the subject when she asked simple questions about his childhood. Something was wrong. Isabella began to wonder, who was André really? She knew he had a past like anyone, but something told her that he was hiding more than just small secrets. She needed to know the truth. One night, after he had gone to bed early, Isabella decided to investigate once more. Her fingers hesitated before touching André's phone, which was on the bedside table. But upon seeing the lit-up screen, she felt compelled to check the messages he had exchanged. The messages weren't what she expected. They were cold, impersonal, but there was something more. A series of messages with a woman named Elle, someone he clearly knew very well. They talked about a meeting, something of importance that he had kept a secret. Isabella felt her blood boil, but it wasn't just jealousy. It was a sense of desperation, as if he was hiding something much bigger, something that directly involved her. She closed the phone, the weight of the truth starting to press down on her shoulders. What was going on? Who was this woman, and what was the secret between them? As she searched for more clues, Isabella remembered the letter she had found weeks earlier. Determined to find out more, she went to the office again and began rummaging through the documents, becoming more desperate for answers. That's when she found something even more disturbing. A folder of documents in a secret compartment of André's desk. Inside, there was a contract she never imagined she would find. A marriage contract. But not just any contract. It was a contract involving a large sum of money, a promise of silence, and the name of someone Isabella knew very well, her own name. Isabella's heart raced. What was this? A marriage contract? But she was about to marry André. Nothing made sense at that moment. But what else didn't she know? She was about to discover the truth, and once she did, her life would never be the same. The next morning arrived, but Isabella couldn't rest. She was still consumed by the discovery she had made the night before. The contract, her name there, the mysterious messages with Elle. None of it made sense. How could André, the man she planned to spend the rest of her life with, be involved in something so dark? What was he trying to hide? What was he doing so wrong that he needed to keep that secret? As the days passed, Isabella couldn't stop thinking about the folder she had found. That contract wasn't just a formality for the marriage as she had initially thought. It was an agreement. Something that involved money, silence, and secret commitments. But who else was involved in this? She decided to dig deeper. On a visit to André's library, Isabella went in search of more clues. As she looked through old books and framed photographs, she found an old letter hidden inside a hardcover book. Upon opening it, she felt her heart race again. The letter was written by a lawyer, and next to it was a familiar signature, the same woman he had been talking to in the messages, Al. The content of the letter revealed that André was not just a successful millionaire. He had a huge debt with people from his past, a debt he could never repay. And the worst part, this debt was related to something much darker and more personal than she could have imagined. In the letter, the lawyer described how André had been involved in a financial scandal years ago, something that had shaken his life, but that he had always kept a secret. He had been responsible for a huge scam involving a series of fake companies and investments, where many people were harmed, people he knew well, people from his inner circle. But the biggest shock was discovering that Elle wasn't just a friend or a secret lover. She was part of a group of people who demanded payment of this debt, a debt André could never pay off with money. Isabella was horrified. She didn't know what to do with that information. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but not in a way she would have liked. André, the man she loved, was not who she thought he was. He was tied to a past he tried to hide at all costs, and he was willing to do anything to keep that secret buried, even manipulate her life. The most terrifying thing was that, while Isabella was going through André's memories and documents, she noticed something even more disturbing. The letter mentioned an agreement between André and the other people involved, where he was about to make a final sacrifice to ensure that all the secrets stayed buried. But this sacrifice wasn't just about money. It was something much darker and more compromising, something that couldn't be undone. She needed to know exactly what he was willing to do, and what this meant for her. The moment she closed the letter, something deep in her heart warned her. She was about to become a key player in this game, without even realizing how much her own life was about to be manipulated by him. The day of Isabella and André's wedding finally arrived. Everything was perfect. The luxurious hall was decorated with imported flowers, Isabella's wedding dress was stunning, and the guests were amazed by the grandeur of the event. But while everyone was immersed in the celebration, Isabella couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to happen. The weight of the truth consumed her. She knew she could no longer ignore what she had discovered. Isabella looked at André as he exchanged glances with his friends, the perfect smile on his face. He was breathtaking more than ever. But in that moment she knew, that man was not who she thought he was. The marriage was about to be a lie, and she found herself on the verge of making a decision that could change everything. As the ceremony went on, with all eyes on the couple, Isabella felt a chill. She knew what she had to do. The secret could no longer be hidden, not for another second. She lifted her head and looked directly into André's eyes, who seemed to notice something different in her gaze. The tension rose with each passing second, and when the priest asked, as usual, if both accepted each other as husband and wife, Isabella took a surprising step. She didn't respond with the traditional yes. Instead, she turned to the crowd and with a firm voice said, "I know what you're hiding, André. I know about your past, what you did, who you really are." The reaction in the room was immediate. An awkward silence took over the atmosphere. Everyone looked surprised, some trying to understand what was happening. André, visibly pale, tried to mask it, but his eyes betrayed his fear. He knew the game had changed. He approached Isabella, trying to control the situation, but the bride didn't back down. She pulled out the old letter she had found and showed it to everyone. The fake marriage, the contract with her name, the debts, the involvement with Elle. It was all there, exposed. He tried to deny it, but there was no escaping now. Isabella looked at him with eyes full of pain and disappointment. The man she loved was no longer a mystery, but a man stained by a past he could never erase. She did something no one expected. With a calm and resolute voice, she said, "I can't marry you. Not based on lies." The room was in shock. The people who had come there to celebrate love were now facing a scene of public humiliation. But what Isabella didn't know was that, by making this decision, she was not only exposing André but also putting her own destiny at risk. André, desperate, tried to justify himself, but it was too late. What he didn't know was that by hiding his past, he not only destroyed their future, but also put them in a dangerous situation. Isabella had just opened a Pandora's box, and what would come next would be something even more terrible than she could imagine. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. After the wedding scandal, Isabella's life became a whirlwind. The repercussions of what happened during the ceremony were immediate. The scandal spread across all social media, newspapers, and even TV. She was seen as the courageous woman who exposed the millionaire, while André was treated as the villain of the story, a man with a dark past he tried to hide until the last minute. But what no one knew was that behind all this facade of success, André was not an ordinary man. He had powerful contacts and unlimited resources, and he wouldn't let the weight of a scandal ruin his image without a fight. He was furious, and more than that, he felt shame and humiliation. Isabella knew he wouldn't give up so easily. He had always been in control of everything, his life and his businesses. Now she felt the weight of her decision. She had exposed André's secret, but she didn't know what he would do to take revenge. Days later, she received an invitation to meet with André. "He wanted to talk," he said. Though hesitant, Isabella decided to go, hoping he would just try to resolve things in a civilized manner. But when she arrived at the agreed place, a strange sensation overcame her. The restaurant was empty, except for a reserved table in the back where André was waiting. He was calm, but his eyes were cold, calculating. He no longer seemed like the man she knew, but someone completely different. A man without limits. When she sat down at the table, he didn't look at her the way he used to. There was no more love in his eyes, only coldness. "Do you think you can expose me like this?" he said, his voice low and threatening. "You don't know who you're dealing with." Isabella shuddered. She knew that André was not just a businessman. He was involved in something much bigger, and she had just messed with forces she didn't understand. "I just did what I thought was right," she replied, trying to stay firm. "You can't hide this forever, André." He smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was a smile from someone who already had a plan. He knew what to do next, and Isabella began to realize that she was no longer in control. "You think you'll get away with this?" he said, his tone now more menacing. "I'll ruin your life, Isabella. Not just yours, but everything and everyone around you. You have no idea what I'm capable of." André's words were not empty. Isabella knew he had the power to destroy her life, not just financially but also personally. He had contacts, influence, and resources to turn her life into a living hell. In that moment, she realized that the confrontation she had started would not end there. She had taken the first step, but the road ahead would be dangerous, full of traps and twists. She would have to use her intelligence and courage to face what was coming, but she knew the battle would be immense. As she left the restaurant, the weight of the decision began to weigh even heavier on her. Isabella now had to deal with the consequences of exposing André. But one thing was clear: the game was not over. And unknowingly, she had only just started a much bigger battle. While Isabella tried to deal with André's threat, her life seemed to be falling apart on multiple fronts. The pressure was intense. She knew he wasn't just a millionaire with a dirty past, but someone who had become involved in a much larger web of manipulation. What she didn't know was that her actions to expose him had triggered a chain of events beyond her understanding. In the following days, she was constantly followed. Strange people began appearing in her life, subtly watching her every move, but in a way that was still noticeable. She began to realize that she was no longer alone in her fight. André hadn't just threatened her life, he had placed her at the center of a conspiracy involving more than just him. There were powerful people behind it all, people who wouldn't hesitate to destroy whoever it took to protect their own interests. One day, while Isabella was at home, she received a mysterious message. There was no sender, just a photo. The photo showed her mother, someone she had lost years before, being watched by a hooded figure. The shock was instantaneous. Her mother had passed away, but that image made her doubt everything she knew about her own history. The message read, "You're playing with fire. Don't try to dig deeper." She froze. What did this mean? How could someone have this photo? And what did her mother have to do with all of this? Determined to understand more, Isabella went in search of more answers. She remembered the letters and documents she had found in André's office, and now it seemed like something even darker was hidden there. She needed to know what André was really trying to hide, something he had been so careful to protect. When she returned to André's office, she revisited all the papers and found an old file she hadn't paid attention to before. It was an old contract, but not a marriage one. It was an agreement related to the secret organization André was involved with, a network of businessmen, politicians, and influential people who controlled vast fortunes. The contract had a name Isabella recognized immediately: Al. The woman with whom André had been communicating in the mysterious messages. The truth was unfolding before her, more than she could have imagined. André wasn't just running from a financial mistake from the past. He was immersed in a web of power and corruption, and by exposing the truth, she had become a key piece in this game. Suddenly, things began to make sense. The threat to her mother, the conspiracy involving her death, the mysterious photo, everything was connected. Isabella wasn't just a woman who had been deceived by a rich, manipulative man. She was at the center of a power network much bigger than she had imagined. She knew she could no longer trust anyone. Even the allies she thought she had were involved in this game. Her every move was being monitored, and the only way to survive was to fully understand the extent of this network and find a way to dismantle it. But how could she face it when the people behind it were the same ones who controlled everything around her? Isabella was about to enter a world where nothing was as it seemed, and her quest for the truth would bring her face to face with the greatest enemies of her life. She knew she was in danger, but the determination to protect her mother's memory and bring down the corruption network pushed her down an irreversible path. Isabella knew her life was in danger. Every step she took was being watched, and she began to understand that her only option was to flee. Flee from everything, from everyone, and try to start over somewhere where André and his allies couldn't find her. But escaping wouldn't be easy. The networks he had built throughout his career were vast, and she didn't know who to trust. With the threat against her mother still echoing in her mind, Isabella decided to seek help. But instead of turning to the friends she had left, she went to a figure from her past that she had forgotten. Raoul, a mysterious man who had been an old ally of her mother. Raoul was someone who seemed to know much more than he let on, and Isabella felt he could be the key to the truth. She met with him in a secluded place, an old café by the roadside, where the walls were covered with old posters and there were few customers. Raoul didn't seem surprised to see her, as if he already knew she would come. "You shouldn't have gotten involved in this, Isabella," he said, looking at her with a serious expression. "I need answers, Raoul. Everything is connected to my mother. I know you know more than you're letting on. What do you know about André? About his organization?" Raoul hesitated, as if weighing his words. He knew that by opening his mouth, he was putting Isabella in even greater danger. "I don't know what you've heard, but André is more dangerous than you can imagine. He's not just a businessman. He's involved in something much bigger. Something that started long before you were born. Your mother knew about it, and that's why she died. They killed her because she was about to expose everything." Isabella was speechless. The truth was beginning to unfold, but it was an even more monstrous truth than she had expected. Her mother, who she had always imagined as an innocent victim, had been a central piece in a secret war between corporate and political powers. "But how does this relate to me?" she asked, her heart racing. Raoul looked into her eyes as if it was difficult for him to tell her what he knew. "You're the key, Isabella. They want you because you have something they need. Your mother hid documents, information that could destroy André's organization and everyone involved. And now you have it inside you, the memories, the documents, the connections. You don't know it yet, but you're the last piece missing. They'll stop at nothing to get it." The shock was deep. Isabella never imagined her mother was involved in something so dangerous, let alone that she was a crucial part of this network. But now it was clear that André wasn't just trying to protect her from his own mistakes. He was trying to protect a vast network of corruption that was about to be destroyed, and he knew that Isabella had the answers. Raoul, with a look of despair, grabbed a folder of documents from his backpack and pushed it toward Isabella. "Take this, but be careful. From now on you can't trust anyone. They'll be after you." Isabella grabbed the folder, unsure of what to do with all the information. But before she could ask more, Raoul stood up abruptly, looking around in concern. "You need to go now. They already know you're here." The escape began immediately. Isabella had no time for doubts anymore. She ran through the street, slipping through the shadows, avoiding security cameras and the watchful eyes of those on her tail. But as Raoul had predicted, the risk of being caught was imminent. She was alone, with few allies and many enemies. As she ran, the truth of everything that was happening sank deeper into her mind. She was at the center of a game of power and manipulation, and the sacrifices her mother made, and that she herself was about to make, were pushing her down an irreversible path. Isabella's fight was no longer just about saving herself, but about exposing a truth that could destroy everything. Betrayal was around every corner, and time to make a decision was running out. Isabella needed to decide what was more important to her: saving her life or destroying the organization that killed her mother and manipulates so many lives around her. Isabella had been on the run for days. Her life, as she knew it, had disintegrated into a tangled web of lies, betrayals, and secrets that she could barely keep track of. She had learned too much and was surrounded by enemies, unsure of who to trust. But now, with the weight of everything she had discovered, she was finally ready to take the final step: confront André and expose the corruption network he had built over the years. She knew she had no choice left. If she wanted her mother's death to not be in vain, she would need to risk everything to bring the truth to light. And for that, she needed the document Raoul had given her. the key to destroying the secret organization and André's power network. No matter the risk, she was determined to do whatever it took. The last night of escape was the most desperate of all. Isabella passed through dark alleys, crossed fields, and hid in abandoned buildings. The shadows of her pursuers were always nearby, and every step seemed like the last. But she knew her goal was close. She just needed to reach the room where André kept his secret business. The place, a secluded mansion, protected by guards and state-of-the-art security systems, was the fortress where he hid his darkest secrets. Upon arriving at the mansion, the hardest part was just beginning. She crept across the property, using everything Raoul had taught her about escape routes and blind spots. But what she didn't know was that André already knew she was coming. He was always one step ahead. Inside the mansion, André was waiting for her in a luxurious office, the environment silent and cold, with walls lined with rare books and a refined mahogany desk. He remained calm, but his eyes betrayed a contained anger. When Isabella entered, he stood up and smiled enigmatically. "You finally arrived." His voice was low and emotionless. "I knew you would come. I knew that, in the end, you wouldn't be able to stay away from all this." Isabella didn't hesitate. She pulled out the folder with the documents and threw it on the desk. The room felt suffocating, as if the air was heavy with the secrets that were about to be revealed. "This is going to end, André. You and your organization have nowhere to run. The truth will be exposed, and you won't be able to manipulate everything anymore." Her voice trembled, but she was determined. André looked at the documents with a smile that showed no sign of worry. "You think you can end all of this just by exposing these papers?" he said, laughing. "You're playing with forces much bigger than you realize, Isabella. This won't end well for you." Isabella, with renewed courage, stepped forward. "I'm not afraid of you, André. And I know now what your organization has done. You're going to pay for everything you did to my mother. And for all the others who suffered at your hands." The tension in the room was palpable. But before she could continue, André made a gesture. In a swift move, he activated a hidden security system that immobilized her, trapping her in the chair. Isabella tried to resist, but soon realized she was surrounded by armed guards. What she didn't know was that this wouldn't be André's last move. "You think you're going to win? You don't understand, Isabella. It was all planned. You could never win this game." But what André didn't expect was that, in trying to crush her, he made a fatal mistake. Isabella, with an unexpected move, activated the hidden mechanism that Raoul had taught her. The truth was about to be exposed, and even if she paid a high price for it, he wouldn't be able to escape anymore. The room was flooded with intense light, and a recording that Isabella had hidden in a device Raoul had given her was broadcast, revealing all of André's secrets. His alliances with corrupt politicians, his illegal transactions, and most importantly, the death of her mother, orchestrated by him to protect his interests. Justice finally began to make its presence felt. The security system was deactivated, the guards were immobilized, and before André could react, the police, tipped off by Isabella's unexpected allies, raided the mansion. In the end, Isabella didn't escape unscathed. But she didn't care anymore. Her mission was accomplished. The organization that had destroyed lives, including her mother's, was now in ruins. And though she knew the price for everything she had done was high, she felt a profound sense of relief. The world now knew the truth, and revenge was no longer about destruction, but about restoring lost dignity. After André's downfall and the collapse of his organization, Isabella disappeared from the headlines. She wasn't seeking fame or recognition. Her fight had always been for justice and for the memory of her mother. Over time, she found a new purpose, helping other victims of power and corruption networks find justice. But she would always carry in her heart the pain of loss, knowing that even with the truth revealed, the pain would never fully disappear. Isabella's story became a symbol of resistance and courage, proving that even in the darkest situations, the truth has the power to prevail. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for more exciting stories. See you next time.